Well, I can tell you something right now. No matter what you are looking for in your tight end, the number one player on this list has it. And the number one player on this list is an unbelievably special talent. Did you have the same experience watching Brock Bowers that I did?
I sat down and I was like, all right, I'm not going to watch Brock Bowers first, because I did this last year where I would watch who I knew my number one player is first, just to get my notes down. And then you go like down the list and you check off all the other guys. So it was like, you'd watch Bijan first, you'd watch Jackson first, you'd watch Will Anderson first. And then everybody else kind of looks bad in comparison. This time I saved Brock Bowers for last to take my notes on him. And I was like, oh my God, what a breath of fresh air. It felt like seeing an ice cold glass of water after trekking through the desert for 3 months. It was like, oh, thank God we made it. And then watching him was like, the most refreshing thing. So I think I don't know if your experience was quite that spiritual, but it was there for me.
Oh no, it was. But see, the problem is that I made the mistake. I watched him first. And It's real hard to go through this list of players after watching Brock Bowers and come away satisfied with really anybody. I mean, I think I probably would have even liked Jatavian Sanders a little bit more than I did if I didn't watch him immediately after Brock Bowers. I mean, I honestly, it's an amazing feeling when you have hype and you have a bias and a preconception about a player, and you go into the film like I don't know about you. I kind of go into it like when there's these sorts of players, I'm like,
what can I find that's wrong with them?
Yeah, like I want to prove somebody wrong here. Like, why does everybody love it? You can't do it with Brock Bowers. You just can't. He was better than I expected him to be. Like, he was better than I expected him to be, and I already basically knew that he was going to be the number one tight end in this class. I came away saying to myself, this is one of the best football players at his position at the college level that I've ever seen in my entire life. How's that for a hype train? Okay. This is one of the best
the TikTok
pure prospects that I've ever watched in college in my life.
Yep. That's
Brock Bowers.
There it is.
That's the clip. Yeah.
That's the clip.
So let's talk about what it is about Brock Bowers that makes him absolutely special. First of all, who is this player? Where did he come from? This is a 4-star recruit. He was tight end 2 in 2021. Then he comes in to the best team in college football, the national championship Georgia Bulldogs, as a true freshman, and has 882 yards on 56 catches and 13 touchdowns as a true freshman in the SEC, playing on the best team in the sport. That just doesn't happen ever. Like, what is that? And so obviously that was what puts him on everybody's radar. And of course, he follows it up last season with 63 catches for 942 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, what can you say about Brock Bowers' ability with, I mean, please talk. I can't even get my words into a stream right now.
Okay. So Brock Bowers is I can't. What are we doing?
The podcast is over.
It's over. We're done. We're done. Okay. So what did I write down? Because this is where I got to use my notes because I'm speechless. So blocking, fantastic. I mean, great blocker, better than anybody else I watched. Even Cade Stover, who's like 6'4", 260. Sorry, Brock Bowers is better at it than you. Contested catching. He can catch the ball at any point in his catch radius. He has a massive catch radius. It's like he can pluck it off the turf. He can go up over the top of somebody. I mean, outstretched left, right, doesn't matter. So that's awesome too. Yak, good gravy. I mean, what are we doing? This guy can, like, sorry, I'm going to invoke a name. Rob Gronkowski looks a lot like it. He's like, the way he sticks his leg in the ground and just changes directions. Goodbye. Sorry about it. And they like hand him the ball off and he's just burning people. What's going on? Why is he that fast and that powerful so all of this adds up to, I mean, easily the best tight end that I've watched in the last 2 years. He would have easily been like a mid first round pick in 2023. I'd say that with all conviction. He would have probably gone over. I mean, I can't even, when you go talk about like Will McDonald going to the Jets, Brock Bowers easily take him over him.
Yeah, he would have, no doubt he's the top pass catcher drafted last year.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. I think he pushes top 10 as a true sophomore.
I can't believe how good he is just off the line of scrimmage as a tight end. It's like, if he's getting pressed, see ya. What is like, so what are the flaws in the game? Don't know. I honestly, I'm in a tough position where like, I want to say the thing and I'm scared to, but he feels like a bust-proof kind of prospect. And so since it's a tight end, now he's going to be a bust.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so, okay. Agree with everything you said. I mean, extraordinary athlete at the tight end position. I mean, it's out of this world. Because you watch these guys and you kind of have to remind yourself that you're not watching wide receivers. Like when they're not really crisp out of their cuts and they're not really like snapping their routes off well, it's like, okay, yeah, you're like 250 pounds. Like it's fine. That was fine. Brock Bowers, I mean, okay, yeah, he's a little bit smaller, 6'4", 230, but he moves like a player that's like 190 pounds.
You got to remind yourself that he is a tight end.
Right. And like a real one, he's not like a gimmick tight end, like,
Harold Perkins out of LSU, the linebacker. Brock Bowers made him his bitch when they played in the SEC championship game. A few times where he just manhandled him. That's a good linebacker. That's a linebacker that's going to be going in the 2024 draft.
One type of player in a couple of years.
Yeah, we'll be talking about him. So that and then he goes out and he does these just amazing things as a receiver.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand how he can move in the ways that he moves. I mean, you talk about planting in the open field. It's lightning. It's just, he sticks it and he is just gone. And it's like, there is no way to defend that. I mean, you need, if you're trying to cover this guy with safeties or, I mean, God forbid, linebackers, like there is no possible way that any of those players are going to be able to hang with him. It's just not possible. He's only, we talk about size with tight ends and, 6'4", 230 is on the smaller side. He completely erases it because of his athleticism. You talk about him at the catch point, absolutely dominant player. 13 contested catches on 17 opportunities. That is unbelievably like four missed catches in contested situations. And it's because he can just leap. I mean, he's 6'4". He's getting up over anybody with his this vertical is going to be just absurd. It's going to be absurd. Great strength, despite the smaller frame, 230. The strength is great. There's a clip. He's carrying 4 guys down the field for like 10 yards in one of the games. I didn't write down which one it was, but he's got 4 tacklers draped on him, and he just carries them down the middle of the field for like 10 yards. And the yards after catch thing, just to hammer that home, he led all tight ends in yards after catch in both years that he's played college football. As a true freshman, as a true sophomore, he has led college football tight ends in yards after the catch. Nobody can touch him from the second he walked onto campus in terms of what he can do with the ball in his hands. And you talk about how do we find a weakness with this player? And the only thing that I can even think to talk about here is the fact that he is such an amazing athlete, and they know that just getting the ball into his hands is a recipe for big time success. So what do you see a lot on his film? End arounds, run plays, seam routes where like nobody's touching him. I think the only thing that maybe you could sit here today and say is the way that he's used in college football is not exactly the way that you're going to use him at the NFL level. So if we can see more of the sorts of routes that he's going to need to run, and I have no concerns. I have absolutely zero concerns that he can do anything you ask of him. But that's going to be the thing this year, where if they can expand the way that they're using him and get him into some more situations that it's easier to say, okay, that's what he's going to do in the NFL, and he is the best at that too. That's the only thing right now that I can think to say.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And this is good offense though. Like,
oh yeah, no, totally.
I know you don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, like, we talked about how Jaheim Bell was used and how that was like a travesty. This is like a real put together offense with like play calling and sequencing and all that. And they just use Brock Bowers as like, who do we want getting the ball? We're putting him in that spot. Like it's regardless of position. It's regardless of, anything. It's like, hey, this end around, it's going to Brock Bowers. It's not going to our running back. It's not going to our wide receiver on a reverse. No, it's going to Brock Bowers. They run it reminded me of the Packers in their prime with Rodgers and Devontae, where it would just be like a check and it'd be like, I'm just throwing you the ball, go win, go beat the DBs because you're better than them. And they would just go there about 6 yards out. Bennett would just throw it to Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers just go make people miss. It's like, what are they going to do to get their best player the football? That's the play they're running for him. So he plays the X, he plays the Z, he plays the F, he plays the Y. I mean, it's all there. Everything is there. So, I mean, is that going to be his role in the NFL? Unlikely. I mean, it's Travis Kelce's role. I mean, he doesn't carry the ball, but he does all the other stuff. But that's a 1-of-1. So it's unlikely that that's going to be how it works in the NFL. But get the right coach, the right situation, who knows?
So the big question here is, it's summer, it's July, but when we talk about, we're getting close here to the end of summer scouting. Think about the class as a whole right now. Where does this player get drafted? in Dynasty drafts.
I'm making my list right now. So just because we got Marvin as our 101. You know, I'm assuming you'll take your RB1 shortly after that because, I'm going to take Rocket Sanders. I'll probably, depending on how Braylon Allen's season goes, I'd probably go Braylon at 3. And then, do we entertain it?
You're too low for me.
I'm too low.
You're too low already for me.
I'd say 4 is where I'm like, that's where I can start to entertain it.
At this point in time, based on what I've seen, he's number 2. Kyle Pitts had an ADP of 2.
Fair. That's fair.
There's a precedent here. And there's also an argument that you could make
that he's
prospect. Even better. That's the 4th overall pick in the NFL and a number 2 ADP in Dynasty as a tight end. Brock Bowers is going, no doubt, like undeniably, he's going top 10 in the NFL draft and probably not near 10.
I could easily see it because, I'm sitting here. I'm like, yeah, Marvin's 1. I think that we can agree there, right?
Yes, I agree with that.
And then I feel like I almost feel required to go running back 2, but I think you're right. I think that by the time the draft comes around, there's not going to be a player you're more certain about.
Take the best player.
Yeah.
Take the best player. And I like this running back class. I do. And I think they are going to answer questions that we have this season. That's going to make it even more apparent that this is a good running back class. But right now, the top end of this running back class for me is nowhere near the level of talent that Brock Bowers has. Like, I feel so safe. Like you said, he feels nearly bust proof based on what he can do at his position. And I know it's a very touchy subject in fantasy with the tight ends. And, obviously even Kyle Pitts is that's a work in progress and people are still waiting. I don't think that's going to scare people from taking a player like this in a similar spot.
Yeah, I think you're right. And
that's terrifying.
I think you might have talked me into it because, watching this player is different than watching any of the running backs because there are times where you watch somebody and you're like, oh, this is different. And this is one of those times. And I didn't feel that at all with the running back class.
It doesn't happen often. And sometimes you almost forget what it feels like until you see it happen again.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is something special. This is what special means.
Right. Because we sit here and we're like, we watch so many players. It's like,
right.
We're watching however many guys to prepare for these episodes. And it's like, eventually you're like, okay, I got to get through another one.
Yeah.
Let's get through.
Oh yeah. By the time you got to tight end 7, if you watched 7, 8 guys, these are players that are not sniffing.
And you're waiting to be excited.
Yeah.
You're like hoping that something excites you. And then you get to this guy and it's like just a thrill. It's just like cinema. So, well, let's just slot Brock Bowers at ADP 2.
And we'll get there. We'll get there when we get done with summer scouting. We'll take a look at the body of work and this class as a whole, but I'm just priming myself and you and anybody listening for how high I am going to be on Brock Bowers all year, because it's not stopping anytime soon for me.